I think that there's still more upside in that room than there has been, right? Is that a fair statement? Lower floor, higher ceiling kind of a room? Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ma. I'm John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. We're going to talk a little football today. Staff has become very, very big. We got a big staff in Manhattan right now. We're going to recap some of the latest moves that have become official. Start looking ahead to next season with the defensive line today. All brought to you by our friends, of course, at Holiday Distillery. They've got the Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon. Whatever it is that you're doing. Hey, we're getting close to spring. Be nice to sit out on the porch with some Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon pretty soon. Hopefully you had a bunch of it at your Super Bowl party, but if not, go find it. If it's not at your local liquor store, let them know, and they can get some out to you. Thank you to Holiday. They've got 360 vodka as well, by the way, if you need that for whoever else in your life. Gentlemen, here to talk some football. I know Cole has mentioned a lot lately the size of this staff now that we have more and more additions and support staff coming in. I would tell you that to me, the highlight of the latest update is the fact that Tim DeRuyter has been added as an assistant head coach for the defense. This is a guy who was a former head coach at Fresno State. He's been the defensive coordinator at Texas Tech. That's a name people have probably heard. Not bad to have a former G5 head coach as just a support staffer on defense, especially when you have a first-time defensive coordinator in, first time at the Power 4 level, Jordan Peterson, defensive coordinator, a green, we can say, defensive coordinator. I think that's nice, and I like that you're seeing the investment that K-State is making in all the support staffers to help this thing get going in year one.
Yeah, I think financial investment is probably the main takeaway from something of this magnitude, and having just plenty to, whether it is to self-scout your own team, your own practices, to begin scouting for opponents, game planning for opponents that might be even upcoming. I think that's where the real advantage comes into play when you have this many kind of devoted and committed to a certain task. So I like it. You mentioned the Tim DeRuyter hire. That one is probably the one that pops off the page the most. And Kurtz, a KSU underscore fan, he helps us a lot at KSO. He even said at the time when we first started to become aware of a lot of these names, he's like, I bet at some point we're going to hear Tim DeRuyter on in some kind of advisory support staff. Just they still call it coach, obviously, because it doesn't matter. You really don't have to signify one way or another with these titles just because anybody can coach on the field now. That rule started in effect, I think, a year or two ago, or anybody can coach it. A lot of times it was like, here's the 10. They're the ones that can only coach on the field. No one else can. That's not a rule anymore. Anybody can. And the same thing with recruiting. As long as only 10 are out at one time, anybody can recruit. That's why you see guys like Taylor Brad and Josh Buford hitting the road and doing a lot of the high school stops and stuff of that nature. So it is pretty significant. But the Tim DeRuyter thing, I guess, it was just kind of easy to see from far away, as the KSU underscore fan alluded to, just because of the Fresno State influence on the staff from that time period where he was the head coach, because 3 of the defensive assistants under him at that time are now on this Kansas State staff, and Nick Toth, Marcus Woodson, and Jordan Peterson.
Well, it gives you now, 4 guys on the staff with defensive coordinator experience on that side of the ball at the FBS level, because you've now got DeRuyter, who's been a long-time defensive coordinator at the FBS level and Power 4 level. I mean, heck, just from 2017 to 2024, he's a defensive coordinator at Cal, at Oregon, and at Texas Tech. So a ton of experience there. Jeremiah Johnson, Marcus Woodson, and then Jordan Peterson. We talked about Jordan Peterson really being a first-time defensive coordinator calling the shots at the Power 4 level. And, man, does he have a lot of experience surrounding him. So you really like that. And then in general, just the staff is so big. I mean, look, Collin Klein is making substantially less than what Chris Kleiman was making in 2025. So they were able to devote some of the resources and the savings from that for his salary into the assistant coaching staff. We've seen some of the assistant coaching salaries from a story from Kellis Robinette a couple weeks ago when he got the contracts for a lot of these guys. I know we're waiting on Gleason, the offensive coordinator, still to see what he's making. And we don't know what a lot of these support staffs or assistant positional coaches are making. But guys, they essentially have DY outline, like you used to have the 10 full-time on the field assistants. To frame it up, like I'll still do it that way a little bit, that like if you look at the staff, they basically have like 12 of those regular full-time position coach assistants, coordinators. And then you have guys like Josh Buford coaching the inside wide receivers, Tim DeRuyter is assistant head coach for defense, Jordan Dubb, defensive tackles assistant coach, Preston Mason, outside linebackers assistant, Matt Cardulis, a guy that's been retained from Chris Kleinman's staff as assistant safeties, Drew Little retained as well, assistant offensive line, Sean McGuire retained, assistant quarterbacks. You bring in a guy like Scotty O'Hara, guys, assistant running backs. This is a guy that's been a wide receivers coach at UTEP, was the offensive coordinator as well at UTEP, been at Texas A&M the last couple of years as quality control and assistant wide receivers coach. He's assisting your running backs here. Dimitri Emanuel, they just announced, offensive line assistant, and then Andrew Fowler, special teams quality control, Armani Linton, defensive analyst. Guys, I just listed 23 football coaches in total. Then you have 5 guys on your strength staff, led by Jeremy Jacobs, then Jalen Reed, Bill Young, Seth Porter, Torrey Carter. And then you got Trey Scott as the GM, Taylor Brad as the director of player personnel and high school relations, and Greg Schwarzkopf as the director of recruiting, which we can get into as well. In addition, K-State poached him from Kansas. Now, if you looked at Chris Kleinman's staff, he essentially had 10 regular assistants. Technically, you could count 11 if you include Nate Katzer. And then he had Cardulis, Little, McGuire, and David Orloff as assistant positional coaches. And then he had 2 offensive and 2 defensive GAs. So that's 19 guys, and that's counting 4 GAs. We didn't even list any GAs yet for Collin Klein. Those have not been named. So it's just to give you perspective, Collin Klein's going to have 8, 9 extra bodies that are helping do a lot of the analysis, in-game prep, pre-game prep, scouting, advanced scouting, et cetera, like DY outlined. It's a very large staff, and I think this is something that Collin Klein envisioned when he was leaving K-State to go to A&M. This is one of his expectations, that he wants to have a larger staff when he becomes a head coach, and they have delivered on that.
Yeah, it's a good callback, Cole. I remember some of that chatter now from the time when Collin left, and this is, I will just take it back to the macro point that I was making when Collin was hired about how he can just help pull the athletic department and the football program with it into the modern 2026 world, like what you have to do to win in 2026. And I think this is a piece that we didn't talk about as much at the time because we were all focused on, NIL and stop thinking that going over the rev share cap is cheating and all these different things that drove me insane. But I mean, this is another one. Like you need this type of, like, if you go to SEC staffs, for instance, I mean, you're going to see massive support staffs, or in the Big Ten. I should probably stop using the SEC as the barometer of this, and the Big Ten's winning all the national championships. Okay. And I know some of the narrative out there seems to be that people feel the SEC got a little lazy with staffing over the years because they had so much talent. Anyway, this is the way that a modern, like, winning Power 4 football program would be operating with this type of staff. So I do want to emphasize, like, along with what Cole is saying, like, this is a very good thing that Collin has been here to be like, look, I was at Texas A&M. I saw what this looked like. I saw how this works at the highest of levels. This is what we need. So I think this is all very exciting stuff.
Not only does it expand your coaching operation from a scouting perspective or a development perspective or a game planning perspective, I mean, I think we could safely assume that a lot of this also broadens your recruiting operation as well. And we're going to get into recruiting, so this is going to be probably a good transition. But like all these guys we're talking about, they're going to be in some kind of communication with recruits too, or looking at film, just
right.
all the stuff, or during the season, because they're not as, maybe let's say they're not as big in the development aspect of it all. They're looking and scouting players on other teams that could end up in the portal. Like, we hear that all the time. I think Oregon has like a 4 or 5 man staff just dedicated all season to watching other teams to see what other players they might want the following season. So it comes down to stuff like that too.
What's the same thing, DY, like Texas Tech? You know, I mean, you hear the stories about like James Blanchard, their GM, and their whole staff doing that, having a big board ready, like just in the middle of the season. They just have constantly like a board updating with guys that they would want in the transfer portal, so that like the second the season's done and the portal opens, like they're ready to go. They know who they're targeting and they know who they're going after. And because this is such an important piece of what's going on in the sport right now, I think that's wildly important. And we already know that they were worlds more organized on that front coming in scramble mode, after being hired, like the job that Trey Scott and company did. So, yeah, I think there's just so much more. I mean, we talk about it all the time, right? There's college football. It's like insane for a head coach right now. Like that's why Chris Kleiman retired. You know, he said as much on the way out the door. There's so many more responsibilities outside of just coaching football. Like you need all these different positions. It makes sense that now there is no limit on what you can have as a coaching staff because there's so much more, if you want to call it BS that you have to deal with, but it's just, there's way more to it. You need way more bodies out there if you want to be effective at it.
And to be honest, the recruiting department's going to have to grow at some point too. And I'm sure it will. And we're going to talk about how it already has, but like while you have these rosters of now 105 kids and NIL is a thing and the rev share is a thing and the ability to pop into the transfer portal at a certain time of the year is a thing, you have to sit there and keep them happy and you have to be glued to them and you have to know how to, basically distribute your payroll, so to speak. And it takes more than one or two guys to do that because you're talking to a lot of different people in order to execute that plan.
Well, it's interesting too, even just from a coaching standpoint. I was thinking about this, like, back in Bill Snyder's day, Cole, it was like one of the big advantages that he had was you had limited amount of coaches that you could have. So there's a certain amount of time in a week, like man hour wise, that you have to break down film, look for advantages, whatever it is. And we know that Bill was just maniacal about how much he was working. And that was such a huge advantage. And then, people would talk about the bowl game record that neutralized things because instead of a compact 1 week, right, now you've got all this time and the bowl record wasn't quite as good. Anyway, the days of that are long gone. Like you can hire as many people as you want to do all the minute stuff that back in the past, in those days, may have given you more of an advantage. But now you can just use extra man hours of people that you hire on your staff to do stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great call out. And all I was going to add was I just think as you look at the overall lens and picture of the football staff, I've said it before, but the DeRuyter addition just adds to it, is I think it's a terrific blend of youthful, younger coaches that are going to get out and recruit, as well as experienced guys in the industry that have been there. We mentioned the defensive coordinator experience. You add a guy like DeRuyter, who's been a head coach before, Collin Klein being a first-time head coach at this level. You've got younger guys that are going to hit the recruiting trail. Not that a lot of these other guys that are maybe a little older aren't going to recruit as well, but I just think it's a really nice blend. Because at one point people were saying, oh, like Collin's got a young staff, like a little concerned about, a little green between the ears. That's not really the case. Like I just really like the mix of guys that they've hired on this staff.
Yeah, no, plenty of humility and being like, hey, we need experienced guys. We need people here who can be on the staff to help us.
Should it come to that, I know everyone hates the idea of promoting with them, but you're going to have some turnover on the staff. There's going to be churn. It just happens. Jordan Peterson, like let's be honest, like he's on a fast track probably at some point to get a head coach opportunity, whether that's in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. Sure, you want to go out and get the best guy you want, but you have options really on this staff alone. We've seen it with the last staff when Kleiman basically just went from Scotty Hazelton to Joe Klanderman. It would not stun me, like, and when we're talking about the staff, if Jordan Peterson leaves, based on his track record and now getting the opportunity here at Kansas State, I mean, Jeremiah Johnson will be someone that's probably heavily considered.
Yeah, right. Came from running the coastal defense. So, yeah, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, we are going to talk about one of the additions to the recruiting staff that K-State pulled in from Kansas, and we'll do that next.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
All right, so K-State has officially announced in the last couple of weeks the director of recruiting. We've known about this for a while, but things become official. Greg Schwartzkopf from Kansas. He was at KU, played a large role in the in-state class that Kansas had that, there was quite a big deal made about within the last year. He's a guy that I think by most accounts over there in Lawrence was well respected, did a really good job. He's coming over now to help the Cats, and you love that. Taylor Bratt's role has changed a little bit now, and we can talk some of that as well. But DY, your initial thoughts on K-State pulling over Greg Schwartzkopf from the rival?
Well, first, I think it's you alluded to it in the last segment, kind of a manpower volume thing. Recruiting, it's the sheer amount of volume involved in this is pretty wide, and you just need other people involved in that endeavor. And obviously, you're not. Taylor Bratt, that was a bit of a promotion of sorts for him. If we're going to try to explain how this kind of works, with Greg Schwartzkopf now being the director of recruiting at Kansas State, which is what Taylor Bratt's title originally was, and Bratt, often has been on the road traveling when the recruiting periods have been open. So I think you're going to see Bratt probably more tied to the in his title also was high school relations, like just the branches and the extensions that he has to all the high school coaches in Kansas. That's been going on for years and years since he's been at Kansas State, and even before that, when he was just a young pup, around his dad all the time at Butler as well. So he has that ability. But Greg Schwartzkopf's going to come in and be the director of recruiting, probably be more tied at the hip of Trey Scott, I think, in the scouting realm as well, which is not something that Taylor Bratt always dove into. I think Greg Schwartzkopf can really provide some punch there when it comes to the scouting department, kind of a little bit more of his wheelhouse as well, to kind of coincide there with Trey Scott. And like you said, he was quite the force. And obviously there was some financial stuff tied to it, how KU kind of popped up and had a really good in-state class a cycle ago. But he was sort of the brains behind the operation, the efforts, and all of that. So a really good pickup for Kansas State, and just you get a more defined division of labor here, I think, in the recruiting department.
Yeah, Schwartzkopf, somebody really well respected at Kansas, spent 5 seasons there as the director of recruiting. BYU outlined it big in the in-state class. So as you think about him and Taylor Bratt now essentially tag teaming the state of Kansas and recruiting it, it's a big boost. And yeah, he's going to really support Trey Scott when it comes to the scouting end of things. Trey Scott, I think, is a substantial upgrade here at general manager as well for Kansas State and the staff. So they boosted the recruiting department and the roster management and how they do things. And so there's no doubt about it. This is a really nice addition for Kansas State. We'll be curious to learn more of all what he's going to do. You can find out more about some of that. He was on the Verbal Commits pod with Ryan Wallace and Kevin Flaherty this last week. So go check that out on KCSN as well. Really good feature there by Kevin and Ryan, and learn more about K-State's new director of recruiting. But yeah, they've invested in the recruiting staff here, and it just takes some pressure off. Taylor Bratt had so much pressure on his shoulders, and such a key cog in the recruiting the state of Kansas and recruiting in general. And now he has more support with him, working alongside him. It's exciting to see what these guys are going to be able to do.
Oh, I mean, Taylor Bratt for a while there, like in the Snyder 2.0 days, like the end of Snyder 2.0, the job that he was having to do just by himself is crazy. So I'd imagine that's got to feel pretty nice. Okay, you want to talk defensive line? Is this the position? I mean, I guess if we're going defensive line as a whole, it's not necessarily like a position group. You would break that down to like D and D tackle. But are you most excited for the defensive line out of everything that we're going to talk about here?
I thought it'd be an easier one to start off with. I am excited about the defensive line, especially defensive end. I know everybody's got a little bit of question marks about defensive tackle, but yeah, I mean, I think I think D-line's up there. I mean, if I was, I'd be
Power rank it right now. Power rank position groups.
That's what I was going to ask you guys to do, like how you would power rank your excitement level for the position groups or how you feel about the position groups. I hadn't thought about it this way, but I do say I really like what they've done at wide receiver. I know it's not super flashy in terms of prior production, but if you think about Joshua Manning, who I think can take a step, and then White, the Hawaii wide receiver transfer that we know they really like, that they brought in, Isaiah Williams, Texas A&M wide receiver transfer. Like, yeah, the numbers aren't really there yet. Some of these guys, like Williams, early in his career, going into year 3, but I'm just excited to think about the jump and the leap they can take, coupled with Jerron Tibbs back, Adonis Moise, can he take that jump, etc. So, like, wider, if I was to break it down like D end, John, versus D tackle, I'd probably go D end being number 1. And then I would go wide receivers, maybe number 2. DY, I don't know, maybe running backs 3. I don't know. DY, what do you think?
Yeah, that's tough. I'll put it like this. I don't know if it's easier to put it this way. The position group on offense that I probably have the most questions about is the offensive line. And the position group on the defense that I probably have the most questions about is either safety or defensive tackle.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the only reason I might go with receiver, Cole, is not even so much just about the bodies that are there, which I think you make a compelling case that there's more upside. I mean, the receiver room has more upside. I don't think that's really debatable. But it's also just that Collin coming back and with the staff that he has, like I think that gives the receiver room a ton more potential no matter who is in there.
Yeah, the fact that you would expect pretty strong camaraderie between Josh Manning and Avery Johnson would lend me to think that in an offense that'll probably have more passing volume, that you'll see Josh Manning's numbers probably reflect more of what you think his ability is, rather than in the low volume air game that he was a part of at Missouri. And then, potentially the guy that's probably going to benefit the most, aside from Avery Johnson, I guess, from the Collin Klein hires, probably Jerron Tibbs, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, he's, I don't know, now we're having a receivers conversation.
Yeah. No, well, we could do that. Maybe it's easier to do that. We can pivot or do one on each side of the ball. But if I wanted to go complete hot take bold prediction here, Jerron Tibbs chance to have an all Big 12 season with the Klein offense.
I mean, is he? That's what I was going to ask. Is he your number 1? You know what, DY? Let's make it the top storyline, brought to you by our friends at Elenco. Go to elencohome.com, ALENCO home.com for all of your home improvement needs. We're now talking wide receivers. This is what happens when the boys just start talking some ball. You never know. You never know where it's going to wind up. DY, Jerron Tibbs, is he the number 1 receiver? You have any doubt in your mind he's the number 1 receiver this year?
From a production standpoint, I think he certainly will be, because I think he had really good numbers last year. And when it came down to it, and a lot of that was, the Chase Brown injury coming down the stretch and being forced into that role of sorts. But I mean, he was basically the number 1 last year for coming down the stretch because of that. He has the ability to really, I think, see his production go to another level under an offense guided by Collin Klein, and he'll also have the added benefit of already having the chemistry with Avery Johnson, the trust factor between the two of them as well. Right before we get into this, I said, like, probably aside from Avery Johnson, of course, I think the guy that benefits the most from the Collin Klein hire is Jerron Tibbs, because if you want to go to his maximum potential, and now having the chance to maybe realize that in an offense that is a little bit more conducive to him, is he an all Big 12 type guy? I think he would have a chance if everything goes right.
Jerron Tibbs, 47 receptions, 595 yards. DY, we're going to set the over-under at 799. Why don't you give the taste a little early from an August show on the over-unders here? What do you got? Over-under 799 for receiving yards in 2026 for Jerron Tibbs.
I would go a hair under. And it's probably because there's a little bit of sharing that's going to go along, right? Because you got him, Brandon White, Isaiah Williams, Josh Manning. So
Cole, do this the right way. Hit the over for us. Don't hype up Jerron Tibbs and then say he's going to have less than 800 yards receiving. Cole, tell us about how he's going to go for 1,200. Why are you setting the over under at 799? It's 1199. Cole, 1199 over under.
I was thinking about what Malik Bowles did in 22. That's why.
Yeah. 799 would still be the most by a K-State wide receiver, and since Tyler Lockett, is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
No, Jay said 823. Jay said 823.
Oh, okay. Jace got to 820. So second most since Curry and
It's like,
okay.
It's like, hold on. That I know that doesn't seem right. I know it's been bad, but I didn't think it was quite that bad.
John, if you look at Tibbs' career, 5 receptions, 42 yards, year 1 at Purdue, 25 for 305, year 2, year 3, 47, 595. He's basically making 20 reception jumps or so per season. So maybe he'll have 72 receptions, around 800 yards. But I would actually take the under because they're just so deep, guys, incredibly deep here. Let me just, I've got them at about, if you run the numbers, I'd probably have them at like 4,000 yards somehow throwing the ball. Because again, I'd probably set Joshua Manning's number at like 600 for you guys. Isaiah Williams, I'd probably set it like 550 because I'm pretty high on him. Maybe I'd jump that to 6. So like I haven't done the math yet. Again, I prepared for the defensive ends, but apparently I can throw this out in the D line. I'm not prepared for the offense, the wide receivers, damn it. But so yeah, I don't know. I'll come up with some good numbers for our over-under shows that start to come out in August.
Something to consider and I said, well, there's going to be some sharing going along, and I mentioned those 4 guys, Jerron Tibbs and the 3 transfers they brought in, and Cole just mentioned it as well. But something to remember is there was definitely very little rotation at the wide receiver spot when Collin Klein was the offensive coordinator at Kansas State, and Thad Warp was even the wide receiver coach at the time. It was Malik Knowles, Cade Warner, Phillip Brooks, and don't play dare another soul.
Which, I mean, fair. Like thinking about the roster at that time, probably fair. Cole, also, I have to say, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Okay, got punched in the mouth here on the show. You gotta react on the fly. You never know what's good. This is 3-mall, man. You never know what's happening.
Quick pivot, yeah. And, look, DY was pretty good on the over-unders. Remember he projected Dylan Edwards to finish with less rushing yards than Joe Jackson last year, and he took some heat for it.
All the haters, all the Discord haters, man.
DY must...
The injury and the being leaving the program certainly helped. I don't know that it would have been totally off if none of that happened. So.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I see. I don't know. Now I'm back on the side of the Discord. I mean, the UCF game, the one game he was like healthy, went for like 130 yards. So yeah, I don't know.
It's just funny because like DY had Joe Jackson, I think, at about 1,000 yards, and he was nowhere near that. But then he ran for about 600 against Utah and Colorado down the stretch. And
okay? Here's a really interesting conversation. I was watching the highlights of that again the other day though, and I mean, it is correct. Chris Kleiman basically said the same thing. He was like, he had one really nice cut in the open field that popped one of those. But, like, everything else, dude, he's just running through, like, a van lane. Like, it's like a 4-lane highway that he's running through. So, like...
Yeah, stuff that he couldn't get through. But what do you... I mean, it's a different guy.
Don't be trying to kill our excitement for Joe Jackson end of season 2025.
No, I was almost kind of agreeing with John, but even when he did have some of those holes before, he wasn't getting through them. So I don't know.
Well, the Colorado game was arguably more impressive, but that's Colorado. So I don't know. Look, hey, they've got. I like. Now we're doing a running back room.
Oh boy,
we're ready for that one. The whole team. That's a fascinating discussion. What happens?
I still have questions and need to be proven a little bit when it comes to Joe Jackson. I will say.
I agree. Huh? Cole doesn't look very happy with that.
But I don't really have concern about the running backs as a whole, because if Joe Jackson is paired with Rodney Fields for 5 yards a carry at Oklahoma State behind the trash team, then I think together that'll be good enough and they'll figure it out. But Joe Jackson separately, I'm like, I got to see a little more here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. I don't want to put too much into just the last couple of games of the season that we saw last year. You got to put the complete body of work. You have to remember, like,
he's an end of season guy. Remember what he did against Rutgers?
There were games where you watched Joe Jackson run and you were like, is he hurt? Like, I mean, there was I think it was it UCF maybe? Like, he has a breakaway big play and he's like 6 yards from the sideline and he gets contacted a little and he can't keep his balance to stay in bounds. So things like that, like breakaway speed, things blocked well, got to get more out of it. And then you see the last 2 games and you're like, was he dinged up? Because he did look a little bit more explosive. Look, we'll see what they can get out of him. I think they really like Joe Jackson. Chris Klein and staff did as well. And then we know they really like Rodney Field. So I think the running back room will be solid.
Over under 849.5 rushing yards.
Wow, I've been fired.
For who?
Fired.
For Joe Jackson.
849.5 under.
He had 911 this year. I think it was 911. Yeah, 911 yards this year,
which is bizarre.
Which is crazy. Yeah, but 300 of that came in one game. So,
well, if Rodney Fields stays healthy, then it's going to be under. Yeah.
Do you have Rodney Fields having more rushing yards than Joe Jackson? Do I?
Yes, I do. Thank you for asking, Cole.
Probably not a slam dunk because like this stuff, running backs stuff and how it unfolds is kind of weird sometimes because coaching staffs are very obliged when it comes to this group to stick with a hot hand. So if Joe Jackson just comes out shooting hot, then you never know. But
well, and neither one will probably be returning a punt against Nichols in the opening game of the year. So health should be on the side. At least nobody get a little bit of a bone bruise or something
and they're not playing in Ireland. So
yeah. So terrible things happen in Ireland. So yeah. So I'll take the over, John. I'll take the over of 849 on Joe Jackson. I'll set the Rodney Fields number at 900. I'll take the over on that as well. So that's
we have 4 receivers going for 700 yards and 2 running backs going over 900.
We'll set the Avery Johnson rushing number at 550. I'm going to hit the over there. So I'm over. Jay Harris will set it 250. I'll hit the over on that too. So yeah.
I forgot about Jay Harris actually.
Yeah, Brandon White, all said 99 rushing yards, wide receiver, some jet sweep action.
Wow.
Yeah. Why the hell not?
He's being sarcastic now because if they have all these guys going over on the rushing yards, then they're never throwing the ball, and Josh Main's going to feel like he's at Missouri again.
As I go through this, guys, just incredibly deep, talented, so much talent. How are they going to get them all on the field? How are they going to get them all touches? Oh, boy. I'm feeling a Big 12 championship. You feeling a Big 12 championship? I'm feeling it. Starting to feel it.
Cole, I feel like you busted into an impression there. They got the most talent. Nobody's ever had more talent. Some are saying talent ever.
Not intentional.
You said everybody has a plan, so you punch in the mouth. You punch Cole in the mouth by pivoting to all these other positions that he hasn't prepared for, and his pivot was we're winning the Big 12.
Okay, well, let's just turn this into let's do like some high-level questions on defense. We did like some high-level questions on offense. Why don't we take a break and then do some like high-level questions on defense? Does that suffice for you guys? Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter because I'm in control. So let's take a break and come back.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
All right, Cole. Over under 17.5 sacks for Wendell Gregory this year.
Well, I run the math on this. So he had 12 tackles for loss last year, 4 sacks. I'm going to take the under on that, John. I that is one that I'm going to go under, but just barely. I have him at 16 sacks.
Okay.
So no. I do think he gets to double-digit sacks, but yeah, I'm not going to have him at 17.
Yeah, it'll be interesting who starts at the other defensive end spot. I think that's more.
Not seriously entertaining the question about Wendell Gregory.
Well, I think Gregory gets to 10 plus, but I think the more intriguing conversation and question to kind of tackle is who is that next defensive end after Wendell Gregory? How quickly does Jaden Bryant get ready? Is Elijah Hill multi-talented enough against the pass and the run to be more than just a third down specialist? Is Jordan Allen ready to take another step? Does Travis Bates live on the outside or inside more? I mean, these are questions that'll probably determine or factors that will determine who is that next guy at DM beyond Wendell Gregory. To answer a couple of them, I'm a little wait and see on Jordan Allen. I wanted to see someone get better as the season went on, and I didn't think I saw that out of him, to be quite honest. And I think Travis Bates is more of an interior player for the staff than on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have to slide Bates to the 3 tech more often than not. 6'3", 278 pounds. Yeah, I think it's a good call out. But John's 17.5 sack number for Wendell is not that out of the park, because when you play in the national championship, that means what? An extra 4 games because Big 12 championship and then the playoff games. If we're counting all of that, I mean, it could be on the table. So, John, good call out. I like where your head's at.
Yeah, well, your best case scenario here, DUI, would be that Elijah Hill is the guy, right? The number 2.
Maybe, but him and Jordan Allen are. If you dig into everything, they're probably the 2 most likely, but some of their numbers leave a little bit to be desired. So that this offseason is probably bigger for those 2 than it is for even Wendell Gregory.
Yeah, I mean, John, the concern with Elijah Hill, 6'1", 227 pounds. I do think he's longer than, so you see the height, you get all caught up in that. I'm not too worried about the height because I think his arms and wingspan is longer, and you just see his pass rush technique and what he did at Kennesaw State as a true freshman. There's a high ceiling here, and he had 9.5 sacks, all first team, etc. in his conference. I think he's going to be a great player. The question that you brought up, can he play against the run? He had a 42.9 run defense grade last year. Now, he wasn't on the field for a ton of the run snaps and came on the field for more of the pass rush specialty types. That's going to become the question. I don't think Elijah Hill is going to be your starting defensive end alongside Wendell Gregory. I think it's going to either be Jordan Allen, and maybe they go with Travis Bates. Like Jaden Bryant's another guy that I think is going to be more of a pass rush specialist in year 1, the Coastal Carolina transfer. So Jordan Allen's going to have to step up. And then a guy like Dalton Knapp, who was a redshirt last year, freshman out of Texas, 6'4", 239 pounds, listed on the roster right now. I think he's a guy that the last staff was pretty high on. We know Collin Klein and this staff are pretty high on. He's a guy that's probably going to have to give you some meaningful snaps at D end this year. But I don't know, like you're starting D ends, Wendell Gregory, Jordan Allen, game 1. That's probably what I project. And Elijah Hill's getting on the field on pass rush situations.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of this might come down to nuance of if we're saying like the other starting defensive end, or like would it be best if Hill is the second most like effective rusher that you have?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, everyone has to remember, like Elijah Hill hit the portal, Texas Tech came gunning for him, Oklahoma. Like this is a guy with a lot of interest from high major programs. K-State just got it done so quickly. So yeah, I think so. I think if he's your second best, impact D end, that's what you expect those 2 to really carry the water at D end.
Elijah Hill right now, size-wise, is what Toby was as a redshirt freshman, and really, really struggled to stay on the field anything other than third down.
You calling him a one-trick pony?
At this stage of his career, I think it would be accurate.
How dare you, DY? You know that's a triggering phrase for all of us.
Yeah, I hate that phrase. No, really hate it.
I know I get cold baited with that at some point here. Toby Osunsanmi now playing for the defending national champions, one trick pony, Toby Osunsanmi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why you said D tackle and safety are your biggest concerns. What's a best case scenario look like at D tackle and safety?
At D tackle, it's probably definitely includes Kamari Burns, who in a lot of other scenarios would have already played a lot of college football now, but he was stuck in an odd front behind Dante Corleone. So it is what it is there for him on that front. You lose basically everybody that took a snap on the interior of the defense last year besides Patrick Tackey, who probably didn't even have a combined 25 snaps on the interior. So it's going to be interesting. You're going to have to rely on your transfers. I mean, and that's also Austin Ramsey, the guy that came over from Kentucky that has also played pretty sparingly, but also has a very high upside. I think he was the one that really hasn't played a bunch of defensive line yet in his career. So he's just scratching the surface of his potential. Darian Hicks is probably someone that's going to have to play a lot as like a 3-tech, although, they list him size-wise and what he looks bigger than what I was anticipating. This group has to have a really good offseason. There is potential here, but not much of it has ever been realized, and that includes Patrick Tackey.
It's interesting. They have 8 defensive ends on the roster. You look at eligibility, Wendell Gregory, Elijah Hill, Jaden Bryant all have 3 years of eligibility left. Jordan Allen, 2, Dalton Knapp, 4, Brad Stanier, 4, Tucker Ashford, true freshman, 4, Travis Bates, 1. You look at D tackle, you've got, essentially 6 guys currently on the roster. You're going to add 2 high school defensive tackles assigned that aren't here for spring ball currently, but it's hard to expect any sort of impact from true freshman D tackles. They actually have 3 coming in this class. So you really have 5 defensive tackles to rotate through. Holden Bass, another guy that they'll rely on for some snaps, probably Kansas native, 6'3", 299 pounds, 3 years of eligibility. Hicks, 3 years of eligibility, and then Ramsey and Burns, 2 years each. Tackey, 2 years as well. I think we all would have liked to have seen maybe one more defensive tackle added, and maybe one. I think what you're missing is that guy with proven success at this level.
There's no one that you can absolutely count on yet.
Yeah. Right. Like I like Austin Ramsey's potential. I like Kamari Burns' potential, but you're counting on 2 guys that played under 200 snaps each for their team last year. Now, there are some reasons for that. Ramsey transitioning from offensive line to defensive line. He's 6'4", 306. Size is strength. That's not in question. It's pad level. Adapting to D tackle. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Just because you were an offensive lineman and you're big doesn't mean you're going to be a great defensive lineman. You just flip a switch. Kamari Burns, DY outlined it behind Dante Corleone at Cincinnati, one of the better defensive tackles in the conference and in the country. So it makes sense that his snap count was a little bit lower, but these are 2 guys that are going to have to make a jump. And then Darian Hicks, coming from Gardner Webb, the FCS level, is going to have to make a substantial leap. So yes, there are some question marks. Why I think you'll see Travis Bates, to DY's point, slide down, play the 3-tech, some at 6'3", 278 pounds. So, and then Holden Bass will get snaps. Patrick Tackey will see 6'3", 298 pounds, JUCO transfer last year. That's probably one of the more concerning position groups you have on the roster.
For sure. Yeah, as you go through it, and as I was scrolling through that list of defensive tackles, I was a little bit like, yeah. But, I mean, I think that there's still more upside in that room than there has been, right? Is that a fair statement? Lower floor, higher ceiling kind of a room?
Probably. Because last year was Damian Leo, who was a high floor, low ceiling player.
Right. And I mean, Uso, I feel like Uso was kind of the same way, I mean, it just, he sort of was who he was after a certain point.
Yeah.
But Alcorn Crowder is the only one that would have changed.
Yeah, you're right. I did forget about Malcolm Alcorn Crowder. Yeah, you're right. He was popping a lot.
To be honest, that might be the biggest loss on the team, considering what they shored up and what they didn't, is Malcolm Alcorn Crowder.
you'd feel great about D tackle if you had Alcorn Crowder too. Like, second highest pressure rate of any interior defensive lineman in the Big 12 last year, really came on as the season went. 6'6", size, prototype. There's a reason Penn State, Nebraska, everyone was chasing him. He ends up at SMU. That's the one big loss. Like, I'm not here to knock Damian Ilalio or Uzo Samalo. They gave it all for the program, and Damian Ilalio was a really good player. It felt like last year kind of, hit that ceiling, the threshold. I think he was dinged up too and struggled some as the season went along. And you had to count on him so much that I think, just these guys wore down. So I think Ramsey, Burns, like they can replace much of what K-State lost. It's like they don't have a guy in all likelihood like an Alcorn Crowder, though, that can be as disruptive on the interior. There's not a lot of 6'6", 300-pound types that came from the JUCO ranks that played D end and have the capability to slide down and play D tackle and hold up like he could and create that pressure. So that was a loss. We know they wanted to keep him.
This time last year, we weren't saying that about Alcorn Crowder either.
It's a great call out too. Like we didn't, like, at one point,
I don't think this time
we assumed him a lost cause and that he might get cut. So
I don't think. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if this time last year we even thought he'd be a regular in the rotation. It always seems to take that second year for JUCOs, so maybe Patrick Tackey's a guy to keep an eye on.
Interesting. Well, the other thing I was going to say too is, if your defensive end room is better in creating that much more pass rush, then it's not quite as imperative to have it coming from the interior if they can just be solid run stuffers. That can be another. There are different ways to skin a cat, right? If the defensive ends are hitting their potential, maybe the defensive tackle spot doesn't have as much pressure there. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking maybe we keep the rest of the defensive stuff in the holster. Talked a lot about the defensive line here. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Cole?
No. I think we're good. John, do you have any Cougar tail in BYU this weekend in Provo?
Excuse me. What are you asking?
Isn't that what they call the thing that they eat?
Well, okay, yes, but the way that was phrased. Pause. let's just pause that. I'm glad I thought that was as funny as I did, because I was like,
I knew what Cole was referring to, so I tried not to make anything of it. But when you did, I was like, yeah. Did you have yourself in?
John was at the Houston BYU basketball game in Provo. I found out on social media that night, right after we had just selected Iowa as our new basketball team, and he's cheating on us going to Provo and watching BYU. And so I just wanted to know if he tried any Cougar tail, and you guys are laughing. I just don't understand. But
did we beat Iowa or Northwestern?
We did. Little sluggish yesterday, but moved to 18-5. So feeling pretty good about the direction of the program under Ben McCollum.
Cool. What do we have this week? What's coming up?
I think it's Maryland. And then
Maryland's coach is melting down. I saw Kevin Willard freaking. He did not take the Wes Miller route.
Kevin Willard, John, is now the Villanova head coach.
Okay. Whoever the coach at Maryland is, I saw him pop it off.
Williams.
It's Buzz. Yeah.
That's right. It's Buzz Williams. Okay.
They had a terrible year at Maryland.
The trap game for Iowa, looking ahead, because they play Purdue on Saturday at home.
Yeah.
Buzz Williams is at Maryland?
Yeah, remember he left A&M last year, went to Maryland. Willard flirted with – remember Maryland got all heated, their fans, because Willard was basically going to leave for Villanova. Just the worst kept secret for weeks, and he was coaching his team in the NCAA tournament. And so, yeah.
What's how's that going at Villanova this year?
They're going to make the tournament, so pretty solid. John, should I get a coaching hot board ready at patreon.com/3mall for basketball? You want me to start?
Oh, it's certainly a good time to be on the Discord at patreon.com/3mall. $5 a month. You can get some bonus audio and access to the Discord and all the shenanigans that happen there. Yeah, I don't know. You guys tell me. I was quite occupied this weekend, so I have not had a chance to watch the TCU game. You guys tell me. I missed the Marcus Johnson game. That's what I'm ascertaining.
Yeah, that happened. They blew another late lead. They were up 10 with 3, 4, or 5 minutes left. Lost. They also had a lead with under a minute left, and Nate Johnson dribbles off his foot. TCU scores a basket. They get a chance at the end of the game, down 1, like 9 seconds left. They inbound to PJ Haggerty, inbound to Kamari McGriff, and you have a whole court to go, and he hands off to PJ Haggerty to get the screen and get him running towards the basket, and PJ Haggerty runs into a guy, falls out of bounds, turnover.
Looking for a foul, John. He looked at Tang like he was shocked he didn't get a foul, which, by the way, didn't look like a foul. It looked like that guy got in position. They had a foul to give, John. 6 seconds.
Yeah, there was a foul to give. They knew that they were, so Tang assumed they were going to foul. They didn't. Yeah, it's the problem there too. If we're going to get into the execution of that play, Cole's right on Haggerty. Like the foul drawing is getting a little exorbitant at this point. But McGriff was just too close to the boundary when he caught the ball. There was just no space for PJ Haggerty to get by him. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
PJ with PJ's reputation at this point. I mean, he's going to have to get Terry Tate, office linebacker, tackled on a last shot to get an actual foul call, because now that reputation's out there that he's just looking for it in those scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, the play has to be designed for McGriff to catch that ball at the elbow.
Yeah. He was basically right in front of the TCU bench.
Yeah, Johnny caught it 3 feet from the sideline, and Haggerty was trying to take the handoff on the sideline side, and they just hedged in front, and he just lost the ball out of bounds. But I mean, the bottom line is they should have never. I think they had 3 possessions in the last minute 10. They were up 5.
They turned it over all 3 of them. Yeah.
They never got a shot up in the last minute 10 in the last 3 possessions because they had 3 turnovers. 1 right out of a timeout. Nate Johnson just dribbled the ball off his leg up 1 or 2.
Yeah, he didn't see the double coming, and
I think Clint Stewart. Yeah, I think Clint.
Yeah, you got to catch that in the backcourt. So
I saw Clint say on social media, that former K-State guard, that he has to go to the backcourt to get that because they have a foul to give. They're gonna be aggressive and trap everything.
You also have the lead still at that point.
Yeah, they were up.
So you can run off more clock if you throw it in the backcourt too.
Yeah, it's the same thing, John. I mean, they got out rebounded 40-25. Everybody was complaining about, not everybody, a lot of people. Jerome Tang was frustrated with the free throws, 36-8, but they had 17 offensive rebounds. So yes, there were probably some frustrating calls, but you get the ball inside repeatedly. When you get offensive rebounds, guys are out of position, they foul. In case they doesn't get to the free throw line. We know that. They're one of the worst teams in the country getting to the line. So I don't even get caught up in free throw stuff anymore. They're just not assertive, aggressive enough. And they lost. So I mean, I felt bad for them. That they led the whole game, and they really were in control almost the entirety of the game. So.
Well, I was the part that struck me is man, it seems like the West Virginia game is having a lead late and then going 4 or 5 possessions in a row with just doing nothing to extend the lead.
This one seemed worse than that. You're up 10.
Yeah,
I thought
with how much? I mean, they were up by 16 at one point, right?
18 in the first half. Yeah, so
they were up by 18 in the first half, and they got whittled down to 4 by halftime. To be clear, but then I think I counted 4 different 10-point leads.
Yeah. Every time TCU made a run and you were like, oh, here comes the run, K-State would answer back with a 6-0 run to push it right back out to 10 or 11 points. I'm trying to find, I hate the new ESPN play-by-play that they came up with. This is just horrendous stuff. But
I got on K-State stats. What do you want?
I was just seeing what the lead was at in the last. So,
okay, I can get the biggest lead with the time left, 78-68, 5:06.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even then it was 80-74, 352, 82-77 with 129. They were by 5 with a minute 29 left.
I know I ripped the timeout, turnover, everything. The timeout right before that, they called up 3. they drew up a beautiful play on a lob to Kamari McGriff on the backside lob and, go up 5. It was a really well-designed play that put them up 82-77 with 1:10 left, but they still lost. Actually,
was a lot.
They remember last year they were up 6 in like the last 2 minutes at TCU, and they lost that game too.
Yes, that was a very frustrating game.
Yeah, because we started to get a little, get some dreamy hope, like they're going to be 2-0 in the Big 12, with a road win, but just another late game execution, just a disaster. And how many times are we going to hear we expected them to foul or at the end of games? Like, it's just, anyways, John, you never answered my question.
John did not get me cougar tail.
Damn it, DY.
I did not have that. I was treated to lots of great food throughout the day, though. Shout out to my friends at Explore Utah Valley. Yeah.
Okay. I was hoping for a food review, maybe get a video from you of you trying it. So
no,
I don't need a video of John.
Mason does that. The food reviews. That's all I was looking for.
Wow. How much does he charge? Okay.
Wow.
Some people think that is a very overrated snack, Cole, out in Provo. I will
It's a donut. Yes. Sorry.
I mean, it's a maple bar. Yeah.
Have you tried it before?
I'm trying to remember if I did. It was at the K-State game in 20.
The funny thing is, in some places it is called a Long John, right?
Yeah. Yes, actually. Yeah, you are correct. Yes.
DY, have you ever had one?
I have had a cougar tail.
Huh. Interesting. Tell me more about it later. You can talk.
It tasted like a donut. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. All right. I've never had one. Never been to Provo. I would have liked to have gone on this trip, but again, I found out on social media that John was at the game.
I don't know why. What do you want from me, man?
I just thought you would mention, hey, I'm going to Provo. Like, I just felt a little cheated on, as I made it clear in the Discord. My feelings were hurt. So, like, I tell you guys, like, I'm going to Florida this week. I'm gonna be gone. I'm not gonna, guys. Everybody listening, I'm not gonna be on the show the rest of the week. Whatever show these guys come up with later this week, I can't wait to listen to it while I'm sitting at Disney World. Can't wait. I'm so excited. Toxic positivity. So.
I don't think that's actually the message that you relayed when you said you were going on this trip to us. I feel like that had a slightly different tone in the way that you described this trip that you're about to go on.
Well, it's the annual trip that we take. So, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned it was annual, but there's still a part of this that's redacted right now.
Yeah. Well, it's purposeful.
Release the Manbeck files.
Yeah. Well, I will. I'll send you guys pictures from my time there. If you need me to go live and punch into the show, I will do so. So,
I mean, it sounded like you would have been more than happy to escape for a little while to do a show. That's why I was a little surprised that you were saying you were out.
Yeah, I'm not going to take my computer or anything. I'm going to really just be there for my family. I'm going to be present in the moment. So,
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Okay, let's end it there. I will make sure to keep you abreast of my travel plans from now on, Three-Mile listeners. And Cole, I will pledge to you that I believe it's October 17th. I plan to be at BYU Notre Dame. Okay, so
where's that game at?
That's in Provo.
Okay.
Whoa, hold on.
Wait, does K-State have a game?
Yes, they play KU.
Really, John?
Collin Klein's first game in the Sunflower Showdown.
You're not going on that. You're not going
in Manhattan. In Manhattan too. Woo.
Yeah. John's not. He's not going to Provo, so we'll take care of that. John, I'll be rescheduling your trip, so you will go to BYU, Oklahoma State, and take that. So whatever game they play.
If I'll tell if K-State Kansas at that time has built itself up into like the most important game that the new Big 12 has played since Texas and Oklahoma left, then I will attend that. But
What if K-State's undefeated by that point?
Kansas is going to have to do its job. Cole, if it's the 95 K-State Kansas game where both teams are ranked in the top, I don't think K-State was quite 10, but like 15, and both teams are ranked in the top 15, then I will attend there.
Will you be in Tempe with me on October 24th for K-State, Arizona State?
Are you buying me a plane ticket or?
No, I haven't booked anything yet. I'm just trying to get our travel schedule lined out for everybody that listens to the show so they know where we're at, exact details.
Well,
That actually I
already booked that trip. I know exactly how to do it. So talk to me off air.
You could convince me. You could convince me to do that. Actually, that'd be a fun one.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully you're not too jet lagged from your Provo trip, Trader. So.
All right.
Anyways,
glad we got there.
I better look if you go to that game.
Cool. You have nothing to do today. Like, why are you keep extending the show?
I'm just saying, if you go to that game instead of K-State KU, I better at least this time get video of you trying Cougar Tail.
Okay, that fair point, Cole. I will do a Mason style review of a Cougar Tail if
thank you
when that happens. Yes,
thank you. Yes. All right, DY, we'll let you go now.
Okay, on that note, everybody go subscribe to the Open for Business YouTube channel, which is where I cover the Big 12, and subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. You can do so at ofbnews.com. Yes, which is why I will be at the biggest game that the Big 12 has had as a conference since Texas and Oklahoma left. Thank you to our good friends at Holiday Distillery. Yes, subscribe to KCSN as well. Yeah, click the subscribe button here to like the video. That would be great. Thanks to our friends at Holiday Distillery. Thanks to our friends at Alenco for all your home improvement needs. You got a project you need done as we head into spring, hit up Alenco, ALENCO home.com. Thanks to Nick Springer behind the scenes. For DY and Cole, I'm John. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.